This episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast is brought to you by TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com, and also brought to you by Green Oak Accounting, GreenOakAccounting.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 155 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening to it, welcome. Glad you found us. Hope you'll take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And also, this episode is coming out the week of Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone. For those of you that are celebrating, I know for me and my family, it's just going to be a real different one. We're going to stay put here and not try to travel this year, which I think, personally, I think is a smart idea. We are not going to get together with my family. So I've got a little tear coming down my face about that because we normally get together over at our family place in Lake Lure, and just not going to happen this year, at least for us. It's going to be my wife and my daughter, and we're just going to have a quiet Thanksgiving here. I'm going to cook the turkey on the green egg, and it's going to be fun. So anyway, hope you're going to have a meaningful holiday. If you're hearing this before the holiday, if you've had it, the Thanksgiving holiday rather, hope it was a good one. So anyway, in this particular episode, it's a little bit of a different episode in that it's what I like to call a solo episode, or at least that's what I refer to it with my virtual assistant, just Rachel, who does all of the editing and show notes and all that sort of stuff that I couldn't do without her help. But anyway, this particular episode, I'm going to be talking about being able to embrace some of the changes that we've gone through over this past year. It's just a big theme. This year, 2020, it's we're just gonna remember it for a long time, just about all the things that have happened. But it's created a lot of change for people, and I think I wanted to just share my thoughts on what it means to embrace change and really kind of thinking about how you can structure your practice maybe differently and all of those kinds of things. So we'll get to that here in just a moment. But one of the things I wanted to mention to you is I've got an upcoming kind of small series of podcast episodes that are partnered with my friend Daniel Fava, who has another podcast that I really recommend, and it's Private Practice Elevation. And we'll have links here in the show summary, show notes for his podcast. But anyway, Daniel, one of the things that I realized is that I really needed to update my website, particularly with bringing on new therapists and just really making it, it's gotten dusty. It's been a while since I've changed the look of it or changed the way that it's structured, and it's just in need of a lot of facelift. So anyway, Daniel is in this particular, the upcoming episodes, and this will probably come out after the first of the year, but the upcoming episodes, he just walks me through the process of doing a website refurbish and a website redesign. And so we recorded that yesterday. And so anyway, looking forward to you hearing from Daniel about that and how he walks me through that process and the things that we need to think about if that is something you're thinking about doing. And speaking of websites, so Daniel is my go-to person when it comes to those folks that really want to delve into managing their own website and managing kind of the back end of things and really into kind of building things. That's the kind of person that I am. I just love tinkering with things and building things on my own and learning new things in that way. But I realize there are a lot of folks out there that just don't want to have anything to do with that. And so what I recommend for those folks that really, if you are wanting to upgrade your website, or if you don't have a website yet, which is such an important piece, is I want you to go and check out Brighter Vision. And if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/brightervision, they are the folks that can absolutely help you with that and just making it really easy to get your website up and going. What I'm doing with Daniel is a different thing, but if you're needing help in just starting a website, they're who I would recommend. So be sure and check them out. You can go to practiceoftherapy.com/brightervision. The other thing I wanted to mention here just real quickly, depending on when you're listening to this episode, is be sure and take advantage of the discount that we've got going on this month for the Money Matters in Private Practice course. That is a course I teamed up with one of our great sponsors to this particular podcast, Green Oak Accounting, and my friend Julie Harris, who is the owner of Green Oak Accounting. We put together a course, Money Matters in Private Practice, that is an intensive course in teaching you the whole financial side of private practice. And so for the month of November, we're doing a special discount in conjunction with Green Oak Accounting. And if you'll use the promo code, just Julie2020, you can get 20% off of that particular course. And again, we'll have links here in the show notes for that. And that's just through the end of month of November 2020. So Julie2020 is the promo code, and that is for either the basic course or for the premium course, where I teamed up with Julie and we go into just lots of detail around that. And you can check out that by just going to practiceoftherapy.com/moneymatters, and that can get you to the right place to check out that course. So before we get to my this particular episode, I'd like to invite you again to go over and check out our sponsors for the podcast, Green Oak Accounting at greenoakaccounting.com. And if you'll talk to Julie and her team, they'll do a free consultation with you to really kind of help you get a handle on your the financial side of your practice. And also the course is there to help you do that. But Green Oak Accounting, they are the experts when it comes to private practice finance. That's all they do is work with therapists, both in solo practices and group practices. Also, be sure and check out our great sponsor, TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. They're the leading electronic health record system for private practices. They're who I use in my practice and couldn't do without them. They've got a patient portal that is second to none, and it just makes onboarding patients or onboarding clients or doing intakes with clients just really easy. And also they have a telehealth portal within, or telehealth function within their patient portal. So it's all in one place, and it just makes it easy to work with your clients in that way. But be sure and check them out, therapynotes.com. And if you'll use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, you can get 2 months of their services for free. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode on embracing change. You know, as we move into this time of the year, I think there's a sense of anticipation that occurs for most of us, and that anticipation can be either positive or negative for some. I know there's some folks that as we moved into the holiday seasons, it's one that they face with dread, and just brings up a lot of bad memories. But I think for others, there is just a sense of excitement, a sense of as I said, anticipation about this particular season. But I know for me, one of the things that happens is I really begin to think about the end of the year, and just thinking about making a transition and New Year's resolutions and all of those things, and setting new goals and really thinking about those things. But this year, it's really quite different. And that's, it's the big understatement, and that this is a year that is going to stand out for us. Those of us that are living through this pandemic that we're in, and just the political climate and all of that we have had this past year, I think it's just created a lot of change. One of the things that has happened I know for me in my own practice and just in my life in general, when the pandemic hit, our priorities began to change. And the timing of the pandemic also hit for me personally in a time when my wife was going through major surgery, and just a really big life change for her and for us and our family, and being able to take care of her. My wife is disabled at this point, and she just requires a lot of care. So it's caused me to really have to think about what is important for me in my practice, and what is important for me just in my life in general. One of the things that I think is most important to start with, and you hear this from me over and over again, and for those of you that have been listening to the podcast for a while, have heard this, is you've got to start with why. And really looking at what are your priorities. Why do you want to be in practice? Why do you want to do the things that you do? This year we've learned a lot. In particular, just learned a lot about making a transition to a whole different business model for many of us, and that is the switch to telehealth and to doing therapy online. And my prediction is, and this is more my opinion, but, in talking with other folks across the country, I think this is going to be very true. I think telehealth is going to become very much the norm over this next year. And one of the things that causes us to do is to really think about how we have our practices structured, how we have things set up. One of the things about being online is that your office space becomes less important. Being able to have the furniture and all of those kinds of things that we think about in doing therapy with people, and having a space that is comfortable for people and therapeutic and has the right colors and the light and all those kinds of things that we think about, that is not quite as important. What becomes important is what is in the background on your screen when you're doing therapy with people. The other thing that has happened for us is we've really kind of think about how we do things clinically. I know for me, that has been something that I've had to really pay attention to, is that doing therapy in the online space is effective if done in the right way. And so that is something that we have to really think about in moving forward, and really in our training and what we do around making that experience for our clients something that is inviting and warm and that sort of thing. I know one of the things that I've run into with some of my clients is that they have not had a good space on their end to do therapy. And so I have just a small handful of clients that I still see in the office, but for the most part, I've made this total switch to teletherapy. The other thing that has brought up for me, and just thinking ahead in my own practice, is what do I want my practice to look like moving forward? All of a sudden, one of the big things that has really become quite aware is that the boundaries around who the types of people that you can see, and the geographic limits of people that you can see for therapy has now widened a great deal. Since I'm licensed in the state of Tennessee, now my potential client base, particularly if I continue with online therapy, is the whole state of Tennessee. And so that's really caused me to think about how I market my practice, and really thinking about a broader reach. One of the things that's coming up, yesterday, as I'm recording this, I've been working or collaborating with my friend Daniel Fava, who has Private Practice Elevation podcast and website. And Daniel is not a therapist, but his expertise is around building therapy websites. And there's some other folks that are good experts in that. And one in particular are the folks over at Brighter Vision, which if you're starting from scratch, they would be a good one to go to. But anyway, one of the things that I started realizing is that my website really was in need of updating. And so one of the things that's coming up in future episodes after the first of the year is Daniel is going to walk me through making upgrades to my website and being able to make those changes and just doing a facelift with the website, making some changes around all of that. And so he walks me through that process. So what my point being is that, again, in thinking about the things that we've learned over this past year, our priorities have changed. The way that we approach private practice in many ways has changed. And so we have to think about doing things in different ways. Now more than ever is a great time to be in private practice because there is such a demand for mental health services. I know in my own town here I would describe where I live as a small metropolitan area in Northeast Tennessee. Live in Kingsport, which is one of what they refer to as the Tri-Cities. And so it's a small metropolitan area surrounded by a large rural area. And really our client base in our practice comes out of 3 states. We get folks not only from Tennessee, but also folks that come to see us from Virginia and also Eastern Kentucky. And so it's an interesting place to live. I love where I live. We're right in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, as I like to say. But one of the things about switching to telehealth is that as I mentioned earlier, it has reduced the geographic bounds of what we do. And even if you're thinking about having a group practice, thinking about the therapists that you can hire for a practice, that is now broadened given telehealth. They no longer have to commute. And one of the things that I say kind of tongue in cheek about having lived through this pandemic is that it's drastically reduced my commute time and that I've been doing much more working from home. And so I've got my office at home set up to where I can see clients from there and work from home just as easily as if I went into the office. Now, it's nice to go into the office because it's a good change of scenery, and also I get to at least wave to the other people on my staff and talk to them from a distance. But it's one of the things about the pandemic that we're in is that we're really thinking about things differently. One of the exercises I did for myself earlier in the year, particularly when my wife was in the hospital and recovering from the surgery she had, I sat down and just spent some time writing down what were my new priorities. And I think one of the things that can happen for us is that we can get really overwhelmed with all that is going on around us, particularly in our practices, within our families, just in the world. And I think one of the things that happens is that just kind of sits on our brain and it just creates this sense of anxiety for us. And so one of the things that I do every week, which has been a big help for me, is I do what I call a brain dump. And so in my planner on one of the pages, I just simply make a list and I just title it Brain Dump. And I just write down everything that is just kind of capturing my attention at the moment. Tasks that I need to complete, or things that I'm thinking about, or things that are maybe causing me to worry or any of that stuff, of just simply writing it down. In many ways, it's really just simply a journaling exercise. But one of the things that has does when we do that is it really gives us a new perspective on things, of really being able to kind of hone in on what really is important. And a lot of times when we write those things down, what we notice is that when we write it down, we think, that might not be such a big deal after all, even though it's something that's just kind of captured our attention and that sort of thing. The other thing that I would say is to be able to embrace change. One of the things that that has happened to all of us is that our routine has just been turned on in, and particularly for those folks out there that still have children at home and just having to navigate this whole thing between working and then homeschooling and all of those kinds of things. Our routines have just been turned on end. And so being able to, in many ways accept the fact that has happened, and to be able to kind of look at the small ways in which we can change our routine to make it work for us. The other thing about, sorry, I'm jumping around a bit, but these are just kind of some thoughts that came to me as I was thinking about this episode. The other thing that I think that has become important for us is to really kind of think about how we connect with others. One of the things about this pandemic is it has caused a lot of us to feel kind of isolated and disconnected from the people that we normally interact with, the people that matter most to us. We just see stories all the time of, particularly this season, as I'm recording this, we're getting ready to move into the Thanksgiving holiday. And so many of us have pulled back from our traditions, in that we're not traveling, we're not getting together with family. I know for me, it's just going to be my wife and my daughter and I for Thanksgiving, and that's okay. And part of it, it was in many ways when we made the decision to do that, it was a hard decision to make because my family always gets together over in North Carolina at our place at Lake Lure, and as I like to say, the whole family is there, and it's just a fun time. And this year in particular was going to be an important year because my dad passed away last Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving Day, and so being together as a family this year was going to be a real important thing for us. But had to embrace that change and had to really think about what is important and what are our priorities given the pandemic and given all that's going on. And so my point being is I think it's just important to really allow ourselves to embrace change, to lean into it, and to be able to really kind of take ownership of that, of being able to think about, how do I reorganize my life? How do I reorganize the things that are important to me? Given the things that we've got going on. I think one of the things, too, just as a side thought to that, is that we are creatures of habit, and we get used to doing things in the same way all the time. And so when we change our routine or change the way that we do things, it just becomes a bit unsettling. And so I think, as we know as therapists, when we're faced with stress, we need to be able to really focus on that self-care and really do those things that we need to do in order to care for ourselves so that we're enabled to care for those that matter most to us. The other thing about this time that we're in is that the phrase, the new normal, has kind of become cliche in a way, but we really have created a new normal in that we just think about our relationships with others differently. Our interactions with others have changed drastically. And so I think, again, not to repeat myself too much, that's just something that we need to embrace. On the positive side, though, I think there's the one thing about it is it has created some really interesting opportunities for those of us in private practice. in particular, just thinking about doing things in the online space. One of the things I jotted down as I was kind of making some notes for myself around this particular episode was just the great opportunity to be able to create diversity of income within your practice. One of the things that can happen is that we can get locked into just one particular way of creating income for ourselves. And the primary way for those of us as mental health providers is that, as I like to call it, it's the butt in chair income stream. In other words, being able to spend that time with clients one-to-one, or one, if we see couples, 1 to 2 or whatever that might be. And that is the primary way in which we create an income. We get paid a fee by the people that see us, either through them paying us directly or through insurance companies reimbursing the patient for that. But anyway, one of the things that I think is really important to keep in mind is that, and we saw this back when the pandemic hit, at least in my own practice, I had a real dip in my practice in that through the month of March and April, when the pandemic really was taking off and things were starting to shut down and lock down, which personally, I think we need to go back to some of that right now. But anyway, when that occurred, one of the things that happened in my practice is that we just saw a drastic drop in the number of clients that we were seeing. And so with the lag time as it is for an insurance-based business, that really hit me in June and July. And so I saw a real dip in income. Fortunately, I had the reserves set aside for things exactly like this, in that had money in reserve to make us through, to cover expenses, to be able to pay my staff and all of those sorts of things. The money was there. So as a side note, just keep that in the back of your minds, particularly those of you that are just getting started in private practice, is to really focus on building a reserve for yourself. But the other thing that I think a lot of folks are thinking about, and this has been something that's just been kind of exciting for me, and one of the things that happens for me with the practice of therapy is I've got another stream of income, and it's basically an online income stream. So there are so many great opportunities to be able to create that for yourself in the online space, either through selling digital products. If you've got a worksheet or some sort of activity that you'd like to share with other therapists, you can sell those online. And the platform that I use for my digital products, like paperwork packets and the session note helper and all of those kinds of things, is a platform called Gumroad. And we'll have links in the show notes here for how you can find out more about Gumroad. So that's one idea. Another idea in just the thinking about creating other income streams is doing online courses. I know for a lot of us, once we got out of graduate school, and this was true for me, is that I loved learning, and so I also loved teaching other people things. And so there is a great opportunity to create not only this one-to-one way of creating income, but also one-to-many way of creating income by creating online courses or seminars, that kind of thing. The platform I use for that is Teachable. And for anybody that has signed up for any of my courses, like G Suite for Therapists, which we're doing a revamp of that, just saying that out loud, doing a revamp of that, and also the Money Matters in Private Practice, and then also the Group Practice Outfitter that I partnered with David Hall on, is all of that's housed on Teachable. Also doing some business consulting for other therapists that are interested in doing like one-on-one consultation with me. I've got the platform for that for people to access that also on Teachable. So what my point being with all of that is give yourself permission to think outside the box and to think about creating other income streams for yourself, so that you're not just solely dependent on just that one-to-one interaction that we all love and enjoy doing. I don't see myself stopping that given what I do, because I enjoy those interactions, but there are ways to really create other streams of income. I think one of the limiting mindset things for a lot of people is that we kind of grow up with this idea that, okay, I grow up, I go to school, get my education, get my degrees, and then I go to work somewhere. And so I work at that place, whatever that place is, and that's where I get my income. Well, with the online space, you can get income from several different places. And when you look at folks that are fairly wealthy, that's what happens for them, is that they've got income coming from several different sources in several different ways. And so anyway, I just want to get you to kind of think about that, and particularly thinking about priorities and thinking about the changes that we've gone through over this past year, and just being able to think in different ways about how you manage your practice, how you have it structured, how you do things. And so hopefully all of this makes sense to you as you think about it, because these were things that I was thinking about and just what I've learned so far about being in practice and what is important and what my priorities are over the last several months, and then just thinking into the next year. How am I going to structure my practice, and what is it going to look like? It's going to change, and it will change again and again and again until I finally retire. But that will be something to embrace, to be able to go with. But for me, that's an exciting thing, just being able to look at new ways of doing what we do in this particular world. And as I said earlier, now more than ever is a great time to be in private practice and go into the mental health field. I know part of the story I was talking about where I'm located is our phones are ringing off the hook, and I'm getting ready to add another clinician to my practice, and I anticipate having to add more. Just because the demand is there. The stigma around mental health, I think, is starting to go away because there's a lot of press about how this pandemic has affected people in their mental health and just the anxiety that they feel. So anyway, hopefully this has been some inspiration for you, or just some things to think about. I thank you for being with me in this journey, and thank you for listening to me ramble on about what I think is important in just thinking about our practices and that sort of thing. Well, folks, thank you for joining me for this particular episode, and hopefully kind of my thoughts and things that I put out there for you about change and embracing change was helpful for you. It's a lot to think about, and I'm grateful to you for being with me on this journey and being part of the practice of therapy, even if it's in whatever way that you are, whether it's listening to the podcast every week, or being part of my email list, or those taking part in some of the courses that I've done and webinars. I'm just very grateful for you for being with me on that. And I really strive to be a good resource for people, and being able to constantly put out new stuff. And so again, thank you for being with me in this journey. Do take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts or Stitcher, There's a bunch of them out there. Also, Amazon Music and Audible now. So that was pretty cool to be able to get on those platforms. So anyway, wherever you might be listening to it, thank you for joining me, and be sure to subscribe. Also, be sure and check out our sponsors for today's podcast, Green Oak Accounting, greenoakaccounting.com. They are the experts when it comes to the financial side of your practice. Julie and her team will do a free consult with you to see what your needs are to help you point you in the right direction. They work exclusively with private practice owners, whether you're in solo practice or group practice. They are the experts when it comes to mental health practices and those of us in private practice. And also check out TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. They are who I use in my practice. They are the number one electronic health record system for private practices. I couldn't do without them. And if you'll use the coupon code Gordon, just Gordon, you can get 2 months of their services for free. So be sure and check them out. So folks, I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. If you're listening to this before Thanksgiving, if you're listening to it after Thanksgiving, hope you had a good one. And thank you for being with me on this journey. Take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and have a good rest of your week, weekend, or holiday. Take care. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.